Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
Do you want me to define a random set of terms that you're going to roll up on a table?
Don't I get to define some too?
Yeah, I think so, but
we can share.
That's fine.
Okay, definition Panda.
I like defining things. Whatever. Cue music. And welcome to another episode of Panda's Talking Games. I'm one of your hosts who threw this set of show notes together about 45 minutes ago. Phil.
I am your other host who helped throw this set of show notes together 45 minutes ago, and I did the writing, Senda.
You actually did the larger portion of the work.
Right, I wrote the words on a piece of paper.
Yes, I blurted things out, and you snatched them and put them into some sort of order.
Should we tell them what we're doing tonight? This is horribly confusing.
Yes. Well, first of all, I think it should be abundantly clear that if anyone's listening, that this is yet again one of our pandemic episodes. So it is unedited because in these pandemic times, to be kinder to ourselves, we neither script nor we edit the show. We just come here to spend time and talk about games in each other's company.
Right. I think we should start calling this genre of show that we do, we should call them the Pandemic Pandas.
No, that sounds bad. Like
Pandemics.
No, it sounds like we're spreading the disease or something.
Oh dear.
It sounds terrible. No,
okay,
no.
Never mind.
In
Carry
these
on.
pandemic times, as I've been saying now more and more. Anyway, so show's not scripted, show's not edited, as it's abundantly clear so far.
Abundantly clear.
But we do have a topic for tonight, so we're not going to do our giving our chit chat, giving us life thing. We actually have a question. You have the question.
I do. I remember to
tell
look it
everyone. Tell everyone what the question / request was.
Right. So on Twitter, Shadow War 1 asked, or actually said, I should say, Pandas Talk Games, oh wise and caring pandas sitting upon their mounds of bamboo, if I may so humbly ask for an episode on the slang terms and common phrases you and others use when talking about RPGs for the new and newer Pandas listeners. Thank you, Pandas, for your hard work.
Okay,
yes.
So to be clear, there's no possible way we could put all the terms that we define into one episode. That is absolutely impossible. We define terms like literally every episode, and we do it also over on Misdirected Mark. There is a idea that has been kicking around the Misdirected Mark for some time of publishing our own dictionary of gaming terms.
Right, like a glossary. But what I will say is, for tonight, the way that we are handling this is that
we are game designers.
We are game designers. We have written down 10 terms that we can define, and I am sitting here with a numbered list of said terms and a D10. My friends, we will be randomly defining these terms this evening, and we'll see how many we get through. Now, I will say, if there's a term that you have heard on our show in the past at any point, or somewhere else, or whatever you want to hear us define a thing or talk about it, and we don't do it tonight because we were trying to, off the cuff, come up with things that we say a lot, which is harder than it sounds. Just let us know. Drop us a note on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. We would be happy to talk about that sort of thing and explain ourselves.
We will do this again.
We could do it again, right? Like,
if we get 10 terms, we will do this again.
We are very much against gatekeeping in RPGs. And if one of those things is like people using a bunch of language that everybody assumes that you know, and you don't know it, okay, cool, fine. I would love to sit down and talk about it so that that's not a barrier of entry, right? I
agree. We try in as much as possible to define things, but over the years, we do use a lot of terms that many of which we coined. Yep. Not all of them, but many of which we coined.
Yeah.
And And again, we don't want to gatekeep you by having to make you listen to every episode. So yes, we will just redefine things.
Yeah, like, oh, it's fine. Just listen to these other 200 episodes and then you'll know what we're talking about. That's terrible.
As they used to say on, I don't know if they still say it, but they used to say it on Gaming and BS. Start at episode 1, just go forward.
No, but I feel like we can't say it's too much. When it was
It's
like 10
much.
episodes, it was fine. When it was like 20 episodes, maybe. It was like 200. This is episode 207.
Is ridiculous.
There's too many episodes.
Way too many. Okay. All right. Roll the die and let's find our first topic.
Dice. This is so exciting. Here we go. Number 6, which is cognitive load.
Oh, can I do this one?
Yeah.
I will do this one. You'll do the next one. How's
that? Or, I mean, you can always just start. You are the definition panda, but I will leap in with my
sounds good.
thoughts.
All right. So cognitive load is a term that we did not invent this term, but we use it a lot when we talk about in games, the amount of work that your brain is doing during some activity in the game. Now, we often use it in terms of GMs. And we'll be talking about, there's a couple of other terms on the list that might come up, but we'll be talking about, like, as you're GMing, that a particular skill or a particular mechanic or game system or whatever is generating a lot of cognitive load, meaning that your brain is working really hard. And what that means is that no one really multitasks, right? So when your brain is taxed with doing a particular activity, other activities are not getting done or not getting done well. Like, we can all drive and chew bubblegum, right? But, like, if you've ever noticed when you have to do, like, some, like, really hard math problem or something and you're chewing gum, you stop chewing gum.
Right, or you chew it, like, really slowly.
Right,
Yeah.
because the cognitive load has shifted to this one area. So, yeah, that's a term that we use to mean that, like, your brain's working a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have that much to add to that one. We usually use it in terms of when you are attempting as a GM to multitask, because the GMing thing is that you have all these things going on at the same time. Since you can't really do all of them at the same time, it's how much time and energy are you spending on each one and how are you balancing them all against each other, right? So then when we're talking about, like, when something adds cognitive load, it means that you're shifting the balance.
Yeah, like, for instance, if you're first time or, you know, one of your early game sessions with a new system, and the system is real mathy, right? I'll just define that term right here. Mathy, meaning has a lot of math, not a real word.
Right.
But
we also tend to say crunchy, which means many rules.
Correct.
Yeah.
Rules or procedures, yes. So if it's one of those, your brain starts to chew up a lot of time working on that, and you might not be doing a good job of reading the table at that moment.
Yep.
You might not be doing a good job of thinking of, like, voices or descriptions or other things, because your brain is, like, trying to crunch through all those numbers. Now, I don't want to make it sound like cognitive load is strictly a crunchy rules thing, because another thing that can use up a ton of cognitive load, especially when you're learning it, is improv.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, because when you're trying to use those skills that you really use both in improv theater and then in improv GMing, where you're really listening to your players so that you can really play off of them. But when you're GMing, you're also kind of thinking ahead and being like, okay, and I have this bad guy, and what would they, what are they doing while this stuff is happening? All of those things. You're doing all of that thinking at the table. That can be a lot of thinking, and depending on how
the cognitive load will also drop.
Yes, so that's something that we've definitely talked about too. And in terms of cognitive load, is like, yes, it adds to cognitive load, and then as you get better at it, it decreases because you're better at it. It's like, if you do a bunch of that really hard kind of math problem, you don't have to figure it out from scratch every single time. You already, have your times tables memorized, and you don't have to think about that part anymore, right? 6 times 6, and like.
You ever drive to work and not realize how you got to where you are on the highway?
Yeah, that used to happen to me driving to Boulder. And when it started happening driving to Boulder, I was like, uh-oh, that was like a 45-minute drive and it's just gone. And
so here's the thing, right? Your brain, the cognitive load for driving has dropped so much that your brain's actually able to do something else while you're driving.
Yes. I was listening very intently to podcasts. Good. Shall we do another one?
Please.
I'm rolling. Okay, I got number 6 again. We just did number 6. Okay, number 5 is layers. I'm looking at you because this is a misdirected mark thing, so you should talk about it. We use
sure. So layers is a misdirected mark idea that when we are engaged in a role-playing game, that there are many different spaces that our consciousness can occupy based on where we, like, what's on our mind in a game, right? So at like probably one of the most in-depth levels you can get to is the player level, where your brain is embodying the player. Right. The character. So the character level is the lowest level. Player level is a very different level.
Yeah.
Sorry. The character level is like the deepest level.
Yeah.
And meaning that, like, when you embody your character, like, the world drops away and you're in the story as your character making decisions, and you can, like, see what's going on. It's very visceral. And then, like, above that is like the group layer, where you're now thinking, like, you're not thinking so much as your character, but you're thinking about, like, what does the group need to do to get to the end of this adventure? I don't want to go through all the layers because there's a whole Misdirected Mark episode on this, but
there is.
You can go up through the layers. You can get to the player layer, which is like, I got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. What time is it? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will call out one more layer, which is my favorite layer. I tend to live in 2 layers, the character layer, sometimes the group layer, and very frequently the story layer, right? Where you're thinking about, how does this work as a story, not how does this work for my character, right? Yep. Yeah. Anyway, those are my 2 faves.
And the thing about levels is that we travel through them seamlessly, right?
Yeah.
Like we travel through these different states relatively seamlessly, and we can bounce in and out of them. So when you talk about a player who likes immersive role-playing is really just another way of saying, like, I really like to play in the character layer, so much so that I kind of like to try to not go into the other layers.
I want to spend the primary portion of my time in this character layer.
I will mention one more layer.
Yeah.
The game layer is the layer in which you engage the mechanics of the game.
Yes.
And this is the trick with immersion, is that if you are playing a game that has mechanics, like, let's say you're trying to play a very immersive D&D game, you are constantly battling, trying to stay in the character layer, but then getting pulled back out to the game layer when you have to do things like figure out your attack roll, or if you're a wizard, what is the rules package for this spell?
Yeah.
Right? So now you're, like, in this constant state of, like, well, I want to be my character, but how does,
out. Yes.
How does how many magic missiles do I get? Right? Like, and you exist in this kind of back and forth kind of thing. So, it's tricky.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So one of the reasons that I love the way that y'all just talked about layers, and then the reason that we tend to use that as terminology on this show too, is because it makes it very clear to me the places that I like to be, and it also makes it very clear to me one of the reasons why my particular group works really well together, because we like to hang out on the same layers, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the reason that we actually tend to be, I mean, it's not that we don't engage the game layer and we don't engage game mechanics, but we don't do it as often as a lot of other groups do, I think.
You tend to also play lighter games that don't actually push you into that layer as much.
Sure. So we're playing Cartel right now. I rolled once last time, which is fine, right? Like, it was one of those things where it was like, when the cool thing about total side note, the cool thing about that game is, like, if things are going along and they're making themselves worse anyway, and you can just let the things happen without having to find out if there's a worse or more interesting outcome, because the direction that everything is going is already really interesting, then you can just let it go. And it goes. And we totally screwed ourselves over, and it's great. Right? Like, so we could have rolled more, and other people did roll more last game session. But yeah. I don't remember where I was going with that. Right, but knowing what layers you like and being able to have a conversation with people about what layers you like to be in can actually help you find people who will enjoy playing the same style of gaming that you play.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
that's one of the ways it's useful, right?
There are players out there who, very much want to play in a table, like a very immersive game group. Mm-hmm. So they will seek out players that enjoy that, that player level. Because it's hard if you're in. So one more thing about this, right? Yeah. So it's hard if you want to be in the player level and somebody else at your table is at the story or even at the character, like story game or player level, right? Like, I'm sorry, I said player again, right?
Player again, yeah.
So you get a person who's playing immersive, right? They want to be really into their character. And they want to just, they want to have conversations as their character or whatever. And then they're trying to engage a player who is basically sitting at the game level because the thing that they're really grooving on this game is playing the mechanics of the game. Both are legitimate play styles. But in terms of group dynamics, now it's a little tricky because the person who wants to be really immersive can't connect to the person who's like sitting flipping through the book trying to think like, what is my next best spell in this in this dungeon, or let me look up this rule thing to see if I can do this cool thing with this spell to help to help out this problem that's coming down the line. And the other person's like, what do you think? Should do you think I should do you think I should ask, the farmer's son out, kind of thing? And right. It's like the other person's like, yeah, that's cool. But I'm just trying to figure this thing out. You get that mismatch.
You get the mismatch. It's really, really interesting because one of the ways you can see it, not always. Yeah, never mind. I'm not even going to say it. It's trash. Forget it. We're going to move on to the next one. Ready?
Roll.
Woohoo! Not editing. No more sixes. Good heavens. All right. Number 1, get to the monkey.
Get to the monkey, otherwise also known as get to the fucking monkey.
Yeah.
Is actually the name of a song from a band.
Oh, really?
The term was originally coined by Tony the Rainmaker.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Actually, I think it might have been actually coined by Drew Smith, Secret Weapon of the Misdirected Mark.
Okay. What is I was not aware that there was a song involved in the monkey.
Oh, there totally is.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the monkey while you find the song.
Good. Oh, okay. I've got it.
Okay.
I believe it's from a band called Tripod, I think is the name of the band.
Okay.
But anyway, do you want to define it? Go ahead and define it.
Oh, yeah. So the monkey is like the juicy, the meaty thing that's happening. It's the reason that you're actually in this scene. So this is about getting in. And you don't, here's by example, right? If there is a flaming mountain in the middle of a peaceful field, and the story is going to happen at the flaming mountain, you have a choice. You can start your players a day's journey away at the edge of the peaceful field with flowers, or you can start your players at the foot of the flaming mountain. So, unless there's some reason to start your players way back in the peaceful fields and make them go through that day, what we call jumping to the foot of the flaming mountain would be getting to the fucking monkey.
In other words, what we're talking about is scene framing.
Yes.
Right? So what we're talking about is...
Go for it. Do a better definition.
Well, no, it's fine. Your example was great. So what we're talking about is scene framing. We're talking about when you open up a scene, how close do you put it to the main action of the scene,
yeah,
right?
The juicy bits.
So, right. So there's been, and like one... We learned this poorly from early role-playing games, too. We've also learned this poorly from video games that actually learned it from early role-playing games where the goal of the scene is to get the quest from the guy in the bar, but we start at the city gates. And like yes. We wander through the fucking town.
You have to find him.
We're talking to we're talking to like every NPC in the game. Finally, like after like 45 minutes, we get like the quest from the guy in the bar. The other way to do that is to literally open at the table, sitting across from the guy as he pushes the map over to you and is like, For 5 gold pieces, I will tell you the secret of where the treasure is hidden in the mountain. Bam! You are
Done.
at the fucking monkey.
Yeah, there's the
right?
monkey.
Yes. This term is a scene framing term, right? And it's about not wasting time when you're setting up scenes in your role-playing game, because if you set them too far back, you kind of have to do the work to get to them. Now, I'm not saying you have to set them on top of the like there is a style of GMing where you can do these kind of aggressive scene framings where you open the scenes like literally on top of the action. My personal preference is not always to do that, but to open it up just a step or two back, right? So maybe I will open it with, you've entered the bar and see your contact sitting in the corner. A number of other unsavory characters eye you up as you walk into the bar. What do you do?
Yeah, because then you're still not wandering through town. But the interesting thing about this, and where I think we've really talked about it a lot, is especially when you are doing aggressive scene framing, or when we're talking about trying to manage your time in terms of convention slots and that sort of thing. Because when you are working on a short time frame, then it's important to decide, what is important to see? What do you need to see on screen? And what stuff do we assume happened off screen? Right? Where are you going to give them a little bit of time and space and they're going to get some character development out of it? And where are you just giving them time to flounder around because they don't actually know their characters that well yet and they just need to do something really fast so that they can just get into the game, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the places where this technique is the most important is in the early scenes,
yes.
right? like if whether you're playing a con game, whether you're playing a home game or whatever, if it takes you 30 minutes to get the map to the quest site, first of all, do you even need to have the scene about getting the map to the quest site? Yes. Or can you even more aggressively cut to the fucking monkey
What's important?
And just put them outside of the dungeon?
Flaming
right?
mountain, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important in the beginning because nothing, until you hit the actual action, everything else that's happening is possibly interesting, possibly going to be used later as, material for later in the session, but really you're just eating up a bunch of valuable time. Like drop as close to the action as you can tolerate based on your own style, and then get right in, get to the good parts. Sound good?
Yes. I don't know what just made the Slack sound because all of my computers and everything are silenced, I thought, but okay.
Okay.
But something did. So the other thing that I would say about that is that when you leave players, especially at the very beginning of a session or at the very beginning of a campaign, a session being like a con game session, when you leave them a bunch of weird random space where they're not exactly sure what they need to do, you're also making it difficult for them to do something else that we like to talk about, which is take the bait, because it can be very difficult for them to tell what the bait is or what the story is, because there is no pressing thing in front of them to do, right? Yep. So the other part that this really helps with when you start them close in on the action is there's no question about okay, here's what we're doing. We're doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, let's do another one. Okay, here we go.
Roll away.
Rolling away. Roll away, my rolling son. Heave away, haul away. Number 2, latency. We haven't gotten any of the funny ones.
I know. We'll just do a funny one.
Okay.
No, we can do latency really quick.
Do latency.
So latency, and again, there's a whole episode on Misdirected Mark about latency. But latency is the time it takes to complete a loop of a particular rule. Like, for instance, a particular combat turn or a combat round, something like that. So if a game is got a whole lot of procedures and rules for carrying out a combat turn, it means there's a high degree of latency from one turn to the next. So for instance, if we're playing a game where I have to roll to hit, and then if I hit, I need to roll damage, then the opponent needs to roll to see what armor soaks up the damage, and then the opponent can roll to see if their body soaks up some of the additional damage. Then we assign damage. And then there are, whatever consequences from taking damage. The time it takes us to get through that for one player is the latency. You add that up. That's the time it takes for the next player to be able to engage the game.
Yep.
Right. So it is a game that has a high latency means that players will be sitting idle longer.
Yes.
And this goes to a term. This is a bonus term that we often use on the show.
Doing that.
Which is okay because we're defining things using other terms that we use.
Sure.
Another bonus term which we often use is dead air.
Yeah.
And this comes from my own background from working in college radio, which is there is nothing more deadly than dead air on the radio, that a person will only last 15 seconds before they'll change the station.
Yeah.
So when you have these high latency mechanics and procedures and stuff, what happens is you wind up with a bunch of dead air, and players, going back to our level thing, start to fall out of their levels.
Yeah.
Right. Or their layers. They fall out of their layers back to the player layer. Right. So like if I have to wait, Pathfinder first edition, 15th level combat. If I have to wait 10 minutes for my turn to come back around to me, right?
Yeah.
That's legitimate, right? That is right.
Yeah,
If I have
it's
to wait,
totally fair. I've played that game a lot.
right. So if I have to wait 10 minutes for the turn to come around to me, you know what's really hard to do? It's hard to stay in the character layer. Now suddenly I'm wondering, like, I don't know, are there any more chips in that bowl?
No.
Are there any in the bag in the kitchen?
I'm even worse than that. I'm like, cool, what are people doing on Twitter?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like you've popped out of your layer.
Yep.
You've popped out of your layers to the personal layer, and you're like, oh, what's going on in the world, right? And then it comes back to you. You engage the mechanic again, which then you're caught back up, and you're excited, and you're rolling dice and doing whatever, and then it leaves.
Yep.
So that is a term we use. High latency is not good.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
And in our episode on Misdirected Mark, we talk about ways that latency gets created. We also talk about ways that you can help make things go faster to try to shorten latency and things like that. But high latency is a problem. It's not one of those terms where we're like, well, either way is good. No. High latency is actually a problem with a game. How much latency you can tolerate is more of a personal thing, right? Like you may be okay waiting a few minutes for your turn. You may not be okay waiting 15 minutes for your turn.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's going to be more personal to you.
Yes.
Okay, cool. You want to do a funny one?
Do a funny one?
Make a funny, because we're at 31 minutes.
Right. Well, cool. I just rolled the 8 skills. Does that count?
Okay, well, this one is kind of funny.
It's both. It's both.
It is both true and funny.
Yeah.
What do we mean when we refer to the 8 skills?
Yeah. So here's the thing. We were talking about cognitive load earlier. So it's good that one preceded this one, right? It's like 8 skills when you're running a table is usually when we're talking about this. But recently we talked about this in terms of players also. You're trying to do some number of things at the same time. You know, you're trying to make sure that people are staying engaged and that you're engaging the mechanics and that you're using good descriptive words and maybe you have voices and that you remember how the game works and who you talked to last, etc., 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 right? So there's a number of different skills that you use to do this. We don't actually know how many there are. Right?
Yes.
But every time we have to state a number.
We like the number 8.
We always say that there are 8. If you do listen back to any of our previous episodes where we mention the 8 skills, the skills that we name every time the 8 skills come up, I'm pretty sure they're different every time.
They're always different. We just make them up at the time.
There's no way. Some of them might overlap, maybe, but
I'm sure we've covered some of them over and over. But we've never codified what the 8 skills are. The 8 skills are referencing the myriad of things that you have to do as a GM.
There's probably like 20 skills. I don't know.
But you probably only engage like 8 of them at once. I think is what our joke was, right? Like pick. There's 20 skills to being a GM. Pick 8 of them.
You're doing 8 right now.
That's what you're doing. You're doing 8 of them at the same time at the table.
Yes. Anyway. Yeah.
And basically what it means is that what we're talking about is that as a GM, we're not mono-focused, right? We're managing to go back to some of our other terms,
Yeah.
we're managing layers
Yes.
of the game, right?
Yep.
So part of our job is to manage the player layer, right? Because we're dealing with, do people look bored? Is somebody like, did somebody need the paper towels like that are next to me? Should I get them? We're reading the table. We're managing the story. We're making rulings. We are engaging characters in dialogue as NPCs. We're all over the place.
Yeah, you're doing 8 things at a time.
We're at 34 minutes. You
Yeah,
want to do one more? Do you want to do a funny one?
Sure. Why don't I roll and we'll see if we get a funny one. We got a funny one. We got... I realized I just gave you a big old grin and no one could see that because all these visual, gags on this audio podcast. Darn it. We got the beefness.
I feel like you should start.
Beefness. So...
You made up this word.
As y'all may know, you may or may not know. I don't know. It depends on how long you've been listening to this show. So,
Fair.
As you might know, I do not eat things that have hooves. Or if you prefer, I do not eat things that have 4 legs. Or if you want the actual correct terminology, I am a polo pescatarian. So this means that I do not eat beef or
Very
pork,
true.
right? Or lamb, things like that, right? But the key piece of information in this story is that I do not eat beef. So we were in Toronto for Breakout.
Correct.
Yes. And Phil was very excited about some French fries.
Yes, we were eating at a gastropub.
Yes. Would you like to tell them about the French fries?
Well, they were, this was a great little gastropub. So amazing small dish food, really good beers, right? Like I think you were able to get like one of your, favorite sour beers. And they had French fries.
They weren't just any French fries.
Cooked in beef fat.
Yes.
Which I've been to other gastropubs where they've done like French fries in duck fat.
I like
which
in
is,
duck fat.
Oh,
Yeah, I
which
can
is
do
just
ducks.
Chef's kiss.
Sure.
But anyway, they offered these in beef fat, and you didn't want to partake in them, but
No.
the table got fries.
Yes, they did.
And it came like in a big cone.
Yeah, it was
remember?
like a Christmas tree of French fries.
Yes. Yeah, it was like one of those it was a cone and then full of like with paper and
Christmas
like wrapped
tree
in
of French fries. Yes.
So we're all just picking at them, eating them, and eventually, because they're French fries, right? Like, there's only so long you can hold out.
Yes. I held out for like a long time.
But they're French fries.
As I remember, there was also some heckling from the crowd.
I mean, I think there was only heckling because you kept talking about the French fries, and we were like,
That's
just
fair.
have some.
Just have some, right? Yeah, and I was like, no. I finally had
We're
one.
like, we're like, just have it. It's just the oil.
I know. So I ate one.
Yes, and then you did not enjoy it.
It tasted like beef. And I was like, this is terrible. Why did you do this to my French fry?
Correct. And in fact, actually, the term beefness came about because of the episode we were telling the story on.
When we told
because
the story.
you did not say it at the restaurant. You just like you had it, you made a face.
I didn't like it.
We all laughed.
Yes, it was funny.
And then we finished the French fries without you.
Yes, and I had my delicious other small plate thing. I don't remember what it was.
The whole thing
good.
was absolutely delicious. But then on the show, we were telling this, and you were like, I tasted this and all, and it was just the beefness of it.
Of the fries.
And you kept talking.
They were full of the beefness.
Right. And you kept talking like you were going to finish, like you were going to have another sentence. But I was like, no, back up. What is that word you just used?
The beefness.
Which then I proceeded to lose it on the mics.
Well, it got better.
Then,
I don't know if you remember this.
I do. What episode were we doing that night?
It was the episode on character steaks.
And we had to say the word
steaks
like 20 times during the episode.
And we started out so well, and I proceeded to lose it more and more every time until I finally made you absolutely, completely lose it, which is one of, I don't know, 3 times in the 200 episodes of this show that I've actually caught you, like, truly just, like, laughing uproariously on mic. Usually you laugh silently. No one can tell. You're laughing at me, but no one else can hear it. It just sounds like me giggling.
It was so bad. We almost
think we were going to finish recording.
We almost thought we were going to lose the episode. Like, we couldn't get through it. And from that point on, we have referred to shows where we thought we wouldn't be able to get through because they were too funny as beefness level events.
Yeah, there is a scale. There's the beefness scale. There's a scale of 1 to beefness.
Yes, of how hard it will be to complete the show because of how funny something is.
None of them have actually been as bad as the beefness.
No, the beefness was it really was. What I remember about it and what I love about that episode is that it was just, I think it was either pre-show or after show. I think it was pre-show because we screwed everything up after. So it was pre-show and we were talking about this. And you just like you coined that term, and you were.
I just kept going.
If I hadn't said a word, like that word would have just like rolled past, and we would have been fine. But part of my job on the show,
you're the straight man,
as the straight man
unquote.
On the show, yes, is to
the only part of you that's straight.
Aw, that's true. As my role as straight man on the show is to find these moments.
Yes.
And make sure they don't slip by. So, like, as soon as you said it, I was like, nope, back up. Because we're going to have to talk about this word now. And then that was it. And then we just proceeded to, like, lose control of the entire show. So, yes, that was a good one. And that takes us to 41 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds like brilliant place to wrap up this show.
So, do you know how many of them we got off the list?
Yeah,
Did we get, like, half of them?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, exactly half.
Well, guess what we're doing next week?
I know. I wrote down some new ones, though.
Alrighty. So we're going to do another set for next week, just because we didn't finish the original other 5 terms.
Cool.
So since we've reached our allotted time, we do need to move to the closing of the show. And the way we do that is to talk about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network. Are you prepared to discuss another show on this network?
Absolutely not. Let's do it.
Tell me about the Misdirected Mark.
Oh, you're gonna pick one. Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Oh, I was gonna make one up, but yeah, sure. On the Misdirected Mark.
Were you gonna make up a show? I don't think that would have been a very good idea. I wasn't gonna
make up the show. I was gonna just make up which one I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Sure, I'll talk about the Misdirected Mark. Sure, on the Misdirected Mark, Phil, Bob, and Jerry talk about many things, including defining words like layers and latency, and talking about said definitions of said words for like 2 hours. It's great.
I feel like it's probably a show that advocates the 1.25 button, the 1.25 speed button on your thing.
Just speed it up. Nah, you guys are funny. You say good things. They're great. You should listen to them, and you can catch them live at 6 p.m. my time and 8 p.m. everyone else's time, aka Eastern time. And it's
live
really fun.
Twitch.
Yeah, live on Twitch, and you can hang out in the chat room, and I am usually there also.
Otherwise, you can just pick up the show where you normally pick up your podcast.
Right. I should start doing the real blurbs again, because, man, my bespoke blurbs are way longer.
Yeah, that's fine. Say, Senda, where can people find us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games, and if you have other words you want us to define, let us know. Although it'll be too late, we'll already be recording that show that night, but let us know. And you can find us or let us know in these other ways as well, forums.misdirectedmark.com, or drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com. And Phil, once they have us one of those places besides words that they want definitions for, what else could they send us?
So by all means, please send us topics for the show. In these pandemic times, we're not doing a lot of prep like in terms of scripting the shows. But you know what? We enjoy talking about the topics that you find important. So it would be great if you would just toss us more topics, just like tonight's topic, for us to define a few things. So we love that. We'll make up a show about it. Don't you worry. We're like really good at that part. So just give us something to talk about. We'll turn it into a show. Now, if you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, please consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons of the show get access to a whole bunch of things, including the bonus outtakes from the show, which, by the way, due to a scheduling error, the bonus outtakes, I think, went out for last week's show.
Yeah, y'all got
out
a
to the
sneak
world.
peek.
That was a sneak peek of what you get
pretty
as a
sure
patron.
that I was talking about Nerf lingo.
Oh, yes.
Because that took me by surprise as a parent.
A little Nerf lingo,
and
I remember.
I definitely had to share that with everyone else.
Anyway, as a patron, you get that nonsense weekly.
All the time.
You also get the after show from the Misdirected Mark, access to I'll tell you what, the real thing you're in here for is the access to our Slack room. The Slack room for life is just the finest collection of humans that I know. I love these people so much. I try to hang out with them as much as I can. We do things like we have our Friday luncheon.
Yeah.
So you can just come join us on Zoom and hang out with us during lunchtime. That's a great way to kind of connect up. But the Slack room's fantastic. There are other things that in our non-pandemic times we've done in terms of giving stuff away and things like that. Those things are going to come back around, but those things are hard to do right now, and so we don't often do them. But anyway. So yeah, your patronage means a lot to us. It is what keeps the lights on. It's what keeps the servers going, our backups, our bandwidth, all that nonsense. And trust me, we got a lot of shows on this network. Like we're using a lot of server space.
Yeah.
All right. If you are already patroning the show, thank you very much. And if you are unable to patron the show, we thank you. We understand completely. And, that's fine. But there is another thing you can do that will help us greatly. It supports our campaign of If You Listen to Us, You Will Love Us, which is my brilliant 2020 marketing strategy of basically... if you listen to us, you will love us.
Right. There's not really much else.
It really explains itself in the whole strategy.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we need help getting people to listen to us. Now, of course, we expect you to drag your friends and family in to listen to episodes. So do that. But also, there's this other thing you can do that helps us immensely, that gets other people to listen to us. People you don't actually know.
What?
that we also want to listen to us. So what is that thing that they can do?
You can leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or the podcatcher of your choice. Every new review we get really does actually help new people find the show, because that's how algorithms work. And it also makes us feel warm and friendly and loved deep in our hearts, in the cuckolds of our hearts are warmed. Yes.
In the subcockle areas and things like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great. And we love it so much. Thank you so very much to everybody who has already left us a review. We super duper duper appreciate them. Y'all are the best.
Yeah. And with that, say, Senda, pick up the die and roll for the next definition.
Ooh. No, it's 6 again. I just keep rolling 6s. This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh?
Okay.
Click.
This time I clicked.
And this time, I didn't forget the gravy.
What?
Yeah, No, put that in the bonus outtakes. You have to be a certain. You have to be a certain age. You have to be a certain age to actually get that reference.
No. This is still going in the normal outtakes. There's this, and then like us singing, and that's it.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't edit through the rest of the show, but there's like something at the
Into the dog, and the dog explodes.
Wow.
Pretty sure he explodes. Cartoon explosion, I think.
Right. I mean, there is that scene in The Meaning of Life.
Oh,
that is
of course.
like,
fuck off, I'm full.
Whoa. I can't. That one is not a thing I can even.
I love
begin
everything
to
on
think
your
of
menu. Put it in a bucket. Put an egg on top.
Oh my God. Gross. Oh God. It's. It's wafer thin.
I was a I was a very young teenager when I rented that from the
Yes,
video store.
Me too. Yes.
I died laughing. Like I saw that scene and then it happened and then I called my best friend up and I'm like, dude, you gotta see this. It's so sick.
I was like, oh, I feel sick I'm laughing, but like my stomach doesn't feel good, but I'm laughing, but like,
I wasn't caught completely off guard because my mother, of course, my mother's Scottish and my grandfather like watched Monty Python on BBC like all the time. So I have before the movies, like I had seen all the.
Kind of knew. My father and I, for a long time when I was in high school, one of the things that we would do like weekends is we would go to the video rental store and we would rent discs of Monty Python's Flying Circus and just watch the show. There were like 3 episodes on.
I like the difference between the two of us. You went and rented discs. Like I went and rented
they were DVDs.
Tapes.
I don't think that they were VHS. I lived through renting VHS and Be Kind, Rewind. Like I remember all of those things.
Be Kind, Rewind.
When I was in high school, I'm pretty sure we were renting DVDs.
I had my own rewinder.
Although I say that, but all the anime that I bought during that time was all on VHS. And so was my copy of Star Wars. No, we were renting VHS tapes. We were not renting DVDs. I did not have a DVD player yet. I'm lying.
Oh, see, the dog technically did not explode, but it ends with him with a funnel and the gravy. I was just looking it up. Anyway, we need to start the show. So, are you ready?
We're like 3 minutes in. We're not. Remember that thing we're supposed to just like cold start?
Right. We totally didn't do that.
We did not. We didn't do the thing. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, let me give us counting.
Yeah, hang on. Okay, I look good.
Okay.
I thought for a second my waveforms had stopped moving. I don't think that's true.
Okay.
What are you at? What's your time point?
34:23.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still in sync.
Okay, good. I just wrote.
Remember that time?
Yes, I really do.
I won the podcast. I came in faster than you did.
You did it faster than me. It wasn't good. It was unsalvageable is what it was.
I believe we re-recorded that episode.
We did. It was much shorter the second time.
Oh, that was a rough one. That was late at night.
That
All right,
was
anyway.
very late. Okay, good.